Well, I'd say that that season opener was definitely an opener, wasn't it?
I reckon so. I mean, as far as openers go, it's pretty spooky
Yeah,
for this
spooky.
time of year, right?
Yeah, well, it kind of fits, I guess. But anyway, hey guys, it's Kibatu with Gamercal here, and in case
Yo,
you missed it, RWBY Volume 4 Season or Volume 4 Episode 1 has just released about an hour ago or so. By the time we are recording this, and yeah, it's an opener for as for lack of better terms. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting opener. So I guess for the most part of it, it's just going to be me and Cal discussing a little bit about what's going on, how the series is, what our theories are for some of the parts and whatever, and it's just disgusting. It's just two fanboys talking about, hey, it's going to look pretty, it's going to sound very nice. It's just going to be our opinions, and if anybody has their own opinions, they can put it in the comments or whatever. But it's just us discussing and whatever. So if you want to join in, whatever. So this season opener, this has been split into four parts, and I'll be putting a timestamp as to which part is starting out, or whatever, so that if you want us to discuss a certain part of the episode or whatever, you can just go there, and then we'll just talk about it there. So there you go. Starting us off, though, we started with the opening cutscene, and the Grimm are freaking heartless. I'll just say that the Grimm are freaking
yeah.
heartless.
When I saw it, I was like, I mean, in a way, it makes sense. It's kind of like how the dragons, like in the last couple of episodes of season 3, how that dragon kind of spawned Grimm from its, I guess, sweat, for lack of a better word. It's sort of similar in that sense, except here it's a giant puddle setup where they just kind of crawl out from there.
Yeah, they mush into the puddle themselves, and then the puddle itself turns into the monster, which is just the weaker monsters. But it makes me wonder how big a puddle would it be, or how would you go about summoning something as big as that dragon?
Yeah, I have a feeling that dragon had to have been created some other way. It just seems a little bit too crazy for that. Like, I could see, obviously, Beowulf or what were summoned out of that, but I could see stuff like Ursa, maybe, what were the birds called again? Keep forgetting. Yeah, well, griffins could be, yeah, the usual sort of eagle ones.
Yeah, I get you.
Nevermore, that's the one. They probably could be summoned out of that as well. Anything bigger than that, though, you would need a much bigger puddle. I don't think that dragon really would work out of that. I think that had to have been something even more synthetic than, coming out of a puddle in the ground.
It had to be created as somebody's image. That's the thing about it. It looked like it was created in a specific image of just the sorts. And not only that, it may have been morphed into that by having so much Grimm come together and just form all that sorrow into that particular being. Either that, or the only other theory I think of is that way back in the day there were really big Grimm like that normally, but they lay dormant. That dragon just decided to wake up at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is possible, but big freaking dragons and big freaking puddles. This is how you're born. But after that scene, we saw Irma and Mercury looking at that puddle, but then we're joined in with this group of people. This group of people that, let's just say they're not a fun company. It's led by the Salem, which we saw at the very end of Volume 3, and they are led by Cinder, who is not frozen up at the tower, which a lot of people were speculating was happening, because they saw a little figure at the top of that along with the dragon. But Cinder is not there. Cinder is back with her left eye gone, and unable to properly speak. And
she lost a lot of hair too.
Yeah,
Her hair is way shorter than...
I saw the intro to the video, and I could have sworn I thought it was like Cinder's brother or something, like a Cinder relative. It's like, who the heck is that? But I also said that when we saw the other three, who is Dr. Watts, who is a generic asshole, Tyrion, who is a generic psychopath, and Hazel, who's a generic guy with a female name.
Yeah, right now they don't exactly have a lot of defining personality, but you don't typically expect that out of seeing them for 4 minutes or whatever. That's, in a group conversation thing like that, that's not going to come up, because I mean Salem comes off as generic supervillain, so it's not as if we've had enough time to really evaluate them yet. And to be honest, we might not get that much time with most of them, with the exception, I think, of Tyrion, because, well, he's kind of on the hunt at this point.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, he was on the hunt for the Spring Maiden, which we can confirm Spring Maiden is out there somewhere, but don't know where, don't know who. But Tyrion was after the Spring Maiden, which makes me wonder if Dr. Watts and Hazel were after the Winter Maiden and the Summer Maiden.
That's possible. My only question with that is that, apart from Cinder, they're all guys. Didn't we learn that the Maiden's powers could only transfer to females? Like, what are they intended on doing with the Maidens at this point?
The only thing, that's a curious thing. The only thing I can think of is that maybe they were trying to capture it. Maybe Salem maybe there's more subordinates that we don't know about that can absorb this Maiden power. Because as far as Crow, I can't remember his name, Ozpin, and everyone else in the group, they only found out that it was only young women. Which, generic, freaking sexist. But it does raise a question, like, if that's all they know, but maybe there's more to it than meets the eye.
Or maybe the good doctor has got something in store for that.
The good doctor,
Ominous.
not professor.
Yes, in RWBY, for some reason, Professor seems to be the lower rank of the two. Ublek has done a PhD and is now a doctor, but in real scientific stuff that way, you get Professor after years of, doing projects and stuff as a doctor. So,
well, it's two different jobs. Professor is more of one that just studies into the scientifics and whatever, and the doctor is actually like a medic that actually tries to studies the body, this human body of such.
That depends on how you're trying to define doctor. I mean, obviously, medically speaking, yes, but you don't exactly get professors in hospital, whatnot. But anyway, not the point.
Sidetracking aside, though. But sidetracking aside, though, it's a really odd shift to see Cinder in such a... She's still trying to be in a calm manner, but you can tell that her attitude, her self-being itself, has shifted in such a way.
Yeah, she took a really hard hit off of whatever the hell RWBY did at the end of the previous thing. That, and her entire demeanor has been changed. You can clearly tell that she is less experienced at this compared to others in the group, because her entire attitude there is effectively how Emerald is to her in the previous volumes. Don't think, obey sort of thing, and she really does not like that idea. You can tell in the, with her sort of hitting the table and just getting really angry at, being scolded despite her plans basically working.
Yeah, well, that's her. She was only being scolded by the other subordinates. She was not being scolded by Salems herself, who Salem praised that the plan worked perfectly. Yet everyone else seems to think there was a different idea otherwise, just because RWBY did so much damage to Cinder.
I have a feeling Salem would be singing a different tune if Ozpin isn't actually dead, though, and I'm pretty sure Ozpin is. I don't know when he'd ever show up again, but it wouldn't really make sense for Salem's speech at the end of Volume 3 if he wasn't still alive somewhere.
It does raise questions, though. It raises a lot of questions. Just looking at this opening scene alone, just what all happened, how it happened, and how much time passed over. And not only that, though, Salem was dead set on the idea that Ozpin is dead, that Cinder had indeed killed Ozpin. And considering who Ozpin is, and considering that Ozpin knew Salem, there must have been some sort of equivalence of power between Salem and Ozpin. So, having the idea of Cinder somehow defeating Ozpin, when Cinder only has the fulminated power, but Salem has different abilities of her own, and she's working with something completely different. It just brings some interesting speculations as to what's going on there.
On the scale of 1 to 10, how screwed is everybody, sort of thing.
I say if Salem were to attack now, everybody would be screwed anyway.
Yeah, so in a way that makes you wonder, well, if she is that powerful, why doesn't she just go all in at the moment? Because if there's nothing to stand up. But maybe the power of all the maidens combined does something more than she can, and that, I don't know. Evil people are not always very logical. Let's just put it that way.
They're very smug. Leave it at that. But after this whole confrontation, though, we only learn that one or two things is that Tyrion was after the Spring Maiden, but after Cinder asked about the girl, RWBY, Salem went ahead and changed Tyrion's plan to go after RWBY and bring her back. Which
alive, his disappointment.
Yeah, alive. And that makes me wonder, what's the purpose of that? Because if it's just because RWBY has silver eyes, then would she be the only one left that has silver eyes? Because they actually mentioned as well that they handled silver-eyed warriors before.
Yeah, which is making me think that the way that RWBY attacked there is something they weren't expecting, or at the very least Cinder wasn't expecting at the time, but there may have been just the sheer fact that RWBY did so much damage there maybe makes her an exceptional case even among Silver Eyes. So Salem may want to take a closer look at that.
I don't doubt right now that Salem is still much stronger than RWBY as of right now. Yet it makes me wonder how much would Salem actually... Does Salem fear the Silver Eye still?
Or, as one sort of theory I've listened to before, is there some connection between Salem and Summer, which would sort of make Salem interested in RWBY in one way, shape, or form?
And when he says Summer, he means Summer Rose, not the Summer Maiden,
Summer Rose,
season Summer, but Summer Rose, RWBY's mother. Because we haven't seen hide, hair, or heard anything at all from Summer Rose. So,
but that's because she's supposed to be dead, right?
That's what everyone believes to be. But I still do not believe that, just because of lyrics or whatever. The lyrics say it, but no, there's something more to it. Besides that, Rooster Teeth is known to have some blatant lies happen, because of which.
Plot twist, Volume 10 brings Summer back.
Yeah. But with all that said, it raises questions about what Salem's plan is and what they're all going to be doing, whatever. They're all pretty threatening of their own right. But after all that's said and done, though, we move on to a small scene about this young farmer that just happens to be farming for such whatever and working with hard or whatever. And it's a strange 2 minutes of taking your time just having seen this kid waking up from a nightmare just to see him work on building his farm or whatever. But what's the purpose of showing this? Showing this little scene here?
Yeah, I couldn't really make a whole lot out of this, other than, like they've shown several times before, they are very good at just like instant transitioning to something else. Usually in the first video of the volumes, actually, which is kind of ironic. You know, for example, when Season 3's won, when they won the first match in the tournament, it's the transition when RWBY was like, "We did it!" there, and instantly transition to the fairground sort of thing. They tend to do that quite a lot, but this one, I think, it must have some sort of importance, but I don't really understand why. Because clearly this is not a maiden of any sort. I mean, I would like to hope he's not. And,
you like to think so, but as we discussed, it's only from what Ozpin and the group knows. It's not what we all know. It's not what Salems knows.
And, well, the one thing I sort of got from the overall scene is that the location is exactly where Amber got attacked in Volume 3. But obviously much brighter and happier now. But yeah, it's exactly the same road, basically, that she got attacked on. So maybe there's some sort of connection with that? I don't know how long ago that was in terms of the timeline. So I don't know, maybe there was some bearing witness to with the weather and whatnot, obviously changing there. Maybe that kid had some sort of eyewitness type thing of it, of the aftermath at the very least. Who knows?
Actually, now that you bring that up, at the end of Volume 3, it went from fall to winter, and we're starting this out here in spring, because there's so much green in the air, the sun's shining, it's not very hot, it's just starting out as spring. So, after hearing about what Salems said about spring, the spring maiden and such, we just see that the whole season has changed to spring in the first place. What I don't know, though, is that did it change from spring a year after, or did it change from winter straight to spring, and so on and so forth? I'm willing to bet it's the latter, but there's still speculation.
I think it's just a natural sort of time-lapse type of thing. It's hard to say exactly how long has passed, though, because it could have just been start of winter going towards end of spring sort of time as an extreme. But yeah, it's hard to say how many months have passed since the last volume ended.
It's hard to say from that point.
It is known that there has been a time lapse, because they do say it in the description for the video and whatnot, that after months, etc. But it's not defined how much it is. And I was actually kind of wondering with the season whether it was spring or summer, because I was having a bit of a hard time telling, really, because most of the time they kind of look the same, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, summer is more addicted to being just super hot, but spring is more addicted to being super green and super fresh. The flowers are blooming, the trees are all filled with green leaves again, and that kind of thing. So I imagine it's just in the springtime, maybe mid-spring, late spring. Maybe in the metamorphosis of changing from spring to summer soon.
I mean, the only other thing with that is just there's a lot of, as the World of Remnant videos have been showing, there's a lot of different ecosystems and such around in places that it really, like, temperature sort of stuff is kind of hard to look at in that. So yeah, gauge, especially with when you're not able to physically experience the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure spring seems right.
Yeah. It still seems, overall though, this scene just seems like a really odd place for it to be at after what we saw with Salems in the group. But it was only a short few minutes, so it's not pushing it, so it's not fine. But after we saw this scene, we finally connect back to the original group, Team Ranger. Yeah.
Team Nora!
Yeah, we start with the back of the group, per se. And we start off with the very first thing that happens. Are they Team Ranger or are they Team Junior? Because most people at the end of Volume 3 say it was no doubt going to be Team Ranger, RNJR. But Nora and Jaune don't seem to agree, and they want to have JNRR Team Junior.
And you know for a fact that...
Yeah.
You know for a fact that this is because of the fan naming and stuff of Team Ranger here.
Of course.
Because Rooster Teeth do pay attention to the comments and stuff. They just have to implement it into the next volume rather than, because of the amount of work and production that goes into it. They pretty much make the volume before, almost entirely complete before actually starting it. And then, so they don't get to the whole fan comments and direction stuff that way until the next volume, and you can guarantee this was put in because of that right away.
Anything to get a joke out.
Yeah, whole naming of the team, anything to have Brent and Nora moments,
Yeah, well, that's always a good thing. Yeah, but after that, though, we managed to find Team Ranger, quote unquote, in the qualms of fighting a very, very different Grimm, which at first just looks like an anthropomorphic Grimm, which is just all rock, but with the Grimm face on it. And I honestly was caught really off guard just seeing this for the first time. But I don't know, it's the idea of just seeing that out of nowhere. After seeing the trailer and seeing what the first new monster they were going to introduce, it was I don't know if it was well introduced or whatever, but it really threw me off as far as introducing new monsters goes. It's with how they're introducing Grimm. It is a change, though, at least it's a different change and a different Grimm that they're introducing for the first time. So they are broadening their horizon on that.
I think it was fine as an introduction sort of stuff for it. I mean, it's the ideal type of place for something like that. I mean, the monkey would have been good too, but the first thing I thought of when I saw it was Fardus from Metroid Prime. That it just kind of had that same sort of look, obviously without the Grimm mask, but just the whole collection of stones and a roughly humanoid sort of structure, being able to move as one, it had that really interesting feel to it, I guess. And I don't know, I've always liked that sort of stuff, where you take otherwise inanimate objects and you kind of bring them to life and do some really cool stuff with it.
It makes me bring in this weird idea that Grimm aren't just monsters that are born out of the black darkness of pools or whatever. They actually could take forms of objects and make them into big threatening monsters. But as we saw in this, though, Team Ranger, they've learned quite a bit as far as actually fighting goes, because we've seen RWBY, I've seen it in the trailer as well, we've both seen it in the trailer, but RWBY's making much more use of her semblance of speed and teleporting and going from one place to the next, and overall just learning a lot more with adapting to using her abilities rather than just swing her scythe around and use it gun part as well.
Because it's also a gun. Yeah, so I always said back in season 2, when in the food fight, when she did the giant rush forward thing and made everything splat against the wall, was like, why does she never use this attack ever again? And well, she kind of does now. It's especially in the trailer, actually, where somehow she split in 3 past that giant stone that the Beowulf was throwing at her. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but yeah, she now has airtime hacks with her semblance, most definitely, and it is nice to see that, making more of a point of, well, her strategies have adapted. She's no longer just going with the weapon skill here. She's actually learning to use her latent abilities as well.
I guess I guess it does show that she is learning more about how to use what she has for what she is, because you've seen ever since she's first joined Beacon, she just used her scythe and knows a little bit about her semblance, and that's it. as the series goes on, I guess we could see more and more about her using more of what she knows, her semblance, her weapon, her gun, and trying to use that all together to do something different.
Yeah. That's probably down to...
Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say, that's probably down to the teaching from Academy itself.
Yeah.
The more... I mean, there's at least a year that passed, pretty much. By the time Volume 3 had ended, it was getting to the sort of year point. And, yeah, there would be a lot of teaching that could be done in that time. And, you know, learning more about yourself in that state as well is be a bit more expected by the end of it, that she would start using that more.
Yeah, but this is also on top of not only that, but she also learned how to use these attacks that she's learning. On top of this, she's learning to use this with her partners as well, her new partners as well, actually, because we already know RWBY is not with RWBY, she's with Ranger or Junior, whatever. But she's with this group now, and she has to learn to adapt and to work together with this group. And I say she's learning that pretty well as Nora, Jaune, and Ren learning to get used to having RWBY around instead of Pyrrha.
Yeah. It does help that 3 of the 4 were already a team beforehand, so they know how to work within themselves quite well, and even at that, I guess I'm not entirely sure how it works in like musician comedy type stuff, but if you've already got an established group, then somebody else joining into it is usually not as difficult when they're already like similar in style to yourself, or can do similar sort of things. And I know RWBY's kind of a bit quicker than Pyrrha was, but she still can fulfill similar sort of roles with a lot of stuff, just without the shield, I guess.
She has a scythe. I don't think she needs a shield.
Exactly, yeah. And she can block perfectly fine with that scythe anyway. You saw her taking those punches from the girl thing in the trailer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
she can block with that scythe.
She's learned pretty much from that. And she's learned so much that Team Ranger actually managed to find a way to take down the rock monster, even with Jaune not having his sword and shield in this whole thing. He's just the plan guy. And being the planning guy, he's Sokka, pretty much. He's kind of sitting back while the Benders are just going out there and just kicking the ass. I did not expect Jaune, though, to have a sudden swift kick to that groin from a rock, though.
Yeah, I didn't really mention that in our discussion stuff, but yeah, that kind of reminded me of Scarlet in Team Sun's fight, and Sun versus Indigo in the previous thing. It was kind of the same sort of idea, just ouch. But that just shows how much aura he's actually got, because he did not even get close to being depleted off of that, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. Not only that, though, he's learned how to dodge.
Yeah, really? Like, can we just mention for a minute how ridiculous some of the avoids that he had in that fight were? I know he was drawing a lot of fire off him, actually, which was pretty good. But, yeah, his evasion was way better than you'd expect off of that. Even looking at the most significant fight he did in Volume 3, which was the final tournament match, he didn't really dodge there. He just kind of took everything on the chin while blocking with his shield, and then just kind of get shield in his face. He has learned to move a lot, and I wonder if he's finally starting to use some of that dance knowledge that he's got on the battlefield. Because, Twinkle Toes, he was there, that's for sure.
He definitely was able to move and whatever, and that movement helped them just enough to get rid of the rock monster. But we learned the rock monster was possessed by this poltergeist-like Grimm. That was another one I did not expect. Ghost Grimm that are ghosts or spirits or apparitions, I should say.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very weird curveball.
Yeah, that is different from a lot of the stuff that we've seen normally, because they usually take more animalistic forms. But I mean, if they're creatures of shadow, as they are, then don't necessarily have to take any specific form. And who knows? They could even have one or two that are more humanoid, like capabilities. Even that would be, well, kind of scary, to be totally honest with you. But that's what they're supposed to be. So I don't know. It's neat seeing the whole possession of different inanimate objects from it, though. Like when it regrew the arm and apparently just shoved it in a tree, and now it has a tree arm, as Jaune was so keen to out.
Yeah, and they thought it was a bad idea, so RWBY just tried to burn it down, and then it just turned into a fire tree, and that was even a worse bad idea.
That just reminded me of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards at one point. There was a whole tree series thing where it got burned down, it turned into charcoal, then it got mechanized back up again, sort of stuff. So I don't know why it reminded me of that, but it was like patchy or something. It's called.
Yeah, that was definitely different though. But after defeating the monster, they returned to the town that they came back from, which I think started with an A. I think. Something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll pull it on the screen if I remember it, or just look it up somewhere. But they return to town. They talk to the guy, and they figure they would have some people come with them to try and move a safer place, whatever. But the people seem to be comfortable there, which makes me realize that even though this town doesn't really have outside communication other than like a town nearby, which has airships and such, and it makes me think that maybe these people that are being sheltered and such, how safe are they and how comfortable are they? Because they look very comfortable, but it doesn't seem to be any sense of sorrow there, which I guess is why Grimm don't come to that spot, because it looks like a very happy town otherwise.
Yeah, I imagine they would get fairly frequent Grimm attacks, but just because they are not the most naturally well defended area, that's why the kingdoms are where they are, because they're best natural barriers and whatnot. I don't really see it that way for this particular village, but it's possible that they just either get enough hunters going through, or dedicated hunters to the place, that they generally don't have to worry about that, or like you saying, maybe there's just not enough sorrow to or sadness in general to really attract the Grimm there. Who knows? These things are always supposed to appear and disappear as quickly as each other. So
it's still weird to see this town being so happy and so quiet and just generally very happy, whatever. But they do rely on Ranger though to come in and take care of that apparition Grimm, which they do, and they get their payment. And all their payment is letting Jaune get an upgrade finally. Upgrade from his little hand-me-down sword to a better sword, and I guess a rebuilt shield.
Yeah, I have a suspicion that at least one of those two pieces broke at some point before the volume started, like during the journey, and I imagine that's why, one of the reasons why they'd have been seeking out the town there is to try and fix that up, because as neat of a strategist as he is, let's be honest, having one of your team members without any means of defending themselves is not a good idea. So, especially when you are outside the kingdoms, you really don't want to be without some way of defending yourself. And I don't think Jaune is the best at fisticuffs, so...
Well, he at least got a new sword, a new shield, and he's upgraded his piece of armor, at least, thankfully. Getting rid of his armor piece and finally letting us know what's under that little hoodie, which we have to talk about at least once. It's a bunny hoodie!
Yep, and it is indeed from the Captain Crunch stuff, right? Well, what are they called again? The Pumpkin Pete's thing, right?
Yeah, it's a cereal that Jaune eats and whatever, and
that Vera was on the commercials for.
And yeah, RWBY seemed to have taken a liking to it. It shows that this group still has some lightheartedness to it, at least. And RWBY's still finding some small funny things funny, at least.
Yeah, there was a fear when going into this from the end of the previous volume that she would have kind of lost what made her her, like the innocence and whatnot. She would have, because of all that she witnessed, she saw one of her best friends die. She kind of got told that she is necessary for stuff to keep going here, and there's a lot of responsibility being put on her at this point. And there would have been a fear that she would have basically become Blake 2.0, just with less running away from stuff, I guess. Thankfully, that's not the case.
Yeah, thankfully RWBY still has a sense of humor, and my favorite quote from that was something about, where did you get that from? Did you send 50 tokens from the boxes to the mail? Yes, I did, and I got this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then she just died.
Yeah, it just shows John still has his child side, but there's some things you don't grow out of, but he's still growing up. John's still maturing, at least. Not only that, though, John still... This is really interesting to me, because if we remember at the end of Volume 3, Pyrrha, the way she went out, the only thing she left behind was her crown, and that was it. Maybe some fragments of her sword, but that has yet to be said. But with her crown, though, I guess somehow Jean went back to find it and get it again, which that's weird to me, because you have to crawl all the way up there to the tower and get it and then run away again. Which to me is funny.
I have a feeling that's not how it went down. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that Crow or somehow RWBY, before she passed out, would have picked it up. And because I can't imagine, especially with all of the elephant grip and whatnot there as well, those that you wouldn't really be able to touch with your basic weaponry.
No.
I can't see Jean himself getting back. No chance. And there wouldn't have been anybody else that could have done it.
No, I guess not. But he got the crown anyway somehow, and I guess he's going to be carrying around for a while, because it just sticks. You'll probably see what I mean by that when you see the episode. But after that, the group just decides to continue on anyway, even though they know that all of the communication towers are down. They can't really have some communications go to the next town they're going to, which should have the airship they need to get through Haven. But that's going to be interesting, because, as Salem said, Haven is next.
Yeah, Haven's the next target, academy-wise, that they want to shut down. And the question would probably be, are they going to get there in time? Is Haven still going to be there by the time they get there? Or are they going to get intercepted by Tyrion and whatnot?
My question is, how are they going to bring down Haven if they plan to do so? Are they going to do it the same way, or are they going to just flat out bring a whole big army? Or are they just going to destroy it from the inside by getting rid of some leaders? There's no telling what they're going to do in Haven, but that's all going to be taken care of, I guess, in the next few episodes. We're going to find out a lot more then, aren't we?
Indeed.
So with that said, I believe we've reached just about every single small topic, unless you have something you want to bring up?
Yeah, the only other thing at the very end is Weiss being, I guess, reintroduced to that, just kind of staring out of her window when she's most likely going to be starting the next episode with the discussion with her father, however that's going to go. Kind of wonder if, like in the introduction stuff, Ironwood's going to be around for that, or what. It's sort of hard to really tell at this point.
Yeah,
but
I imagine... Go on.
I was going to say, the next episode's most likely going to at least start being Weiss-focused.
Yeah.
So,
I imagine Weiss is going to have some very big words for her father, because as we've seen in Volume 3, Weiss and her sister, Winter, they were not very happy with how father was handling things. So there's going to be some issues touched, and there's going to be some yelling, I bet. And yeah, this is going to be interesting to see. Especially considering that I want to mention this as well, that in the trailer, Weiss was still in her room, yet she was still practicing with this very big sylph that she was about to summon.
Her glyph was gigantic, like filled the entire room up, huh?
So it makes me wonder if that's a means of escape, or if she's trying to summon something bigger than what she has killed before. Maybe she killed something very big that we don't know about, and that she's going to try to summon it, which, as we've seen, she knows how to summon now, she just needs to practice.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the introduction sort of shows some interesting stuff with that as well, with her, basically holding her head in agony whilst this glyph comes up behind her on the windows, all this stuff. That could be interesting, just showing that she's getting more and more frustrated with her predicament just now.
It's still gonna be an interesting thing to see how far Weiss is gonna go, and how far everyone else is gonna go. But that's all discussions for another time when the episodes come out in proper. So with that said, then,
just real quick, just wanted to say, we now actually have dust rounds with its attacks. She is actually not just using generic dust at this point, she's using proper elemental, like, crystal stuff as well. Yeah. She fired fire and lightning rounds. I'm kind of wondering how they got hold of them. Nora very definitely said, "Thank you, Schnee Company," sort of stuff, and I'm like, how did you get hold of that? Well, how legal were your methods for acquiring this?
Bear in mind, even though the communications are out, Schnee Company of Dust is everywhere. So I imagine they had to get it somehow, legally or otherwise.
But the point is, we can expect some more variety in the attack stuff with that as well.
Some more elements, yes. And that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to fare with certain Grimm and certain characters they're going to run into.
Yeah.
But with that said, anything else you have in mind?
No, I think I'm done this time. I guess I wonder how many episodes is it going to take before we've had, like, focus on all of Team RWBY? Because obviously this one was very RWBY oriented, and we know next one at least is going to start Weiss oriented, but Blake especially seems to have a lot of different people around her in the intro. Kind of curious about that, hoping that's going to show up next time. Yeah. And then of course Yang
has her own struggles.
Yes, so I'm kind of wondering how that's going to be handled. Is it just going to be like, okay, next one is focused on Weiss, one after that is focused on Blake, or depending on the length of the pause, this one was quite long and almost 20 minutes.
You know, while we're speaking of the intro, actually, now that I think about it, while we're speaking of the intro, yeah, with baseball, since the intro did show up at the very end of the episode, because why not? The intro kind of reveals a little more to you than you think, because it shows off a lot more characters than you think there would be. Because Volume 3 didn't show any new characters, and if they did, they only had maybe a moment. That's it. Volume 4 is showing off a lot more characters, and they're probably going to give them a lot more screen time than any other time.
In particular, Adam's new lackeys, by the looks of it, I imagine will be quite important, because they were mentioned, at least one of them was mentioned by name in Salem's speech to Hazel.
When Salem sent Hazel to go to where the Turks? White Fang. I don't know why Turks came up. But yeah, when Hazel was sent to the White Fang, he wanted to meet somebody named, let's see here, Sienna Khan. Sienna Khan. That's definitely a different name than I heard before, and that's a new one that we haven't heard of yet, or know who it is, or whatever. So there's more than we know of the White Fang as well, but we probably won't hear from the White Fang for some time, especially when they're probably trying to keep to themselves, to keep a low profile, because of how much damage they did to Beacon Academy when they were there.
Adam's probably too focused on hunting Blake anyway.
Blake or Yang? I'm wondering if he's going to be going after Yang, because...
No, I think he realized at this point he's done enough emotional damage to Yang as is, to basically... He was attacking Yang to get at Blake. he wants to completely destroy Blake, right?
It's not just that, though, but at Volume 3, he specifically said that he wants to destroy everything that she loves, starting with Yang. And she didn't destroy her, she just kind of incapacitated her.
Yeah, he kind of did destroy her, though, like, mentally. And that's what we'll see later on in the volume, I guess, when Yang gets her screen time. But effectively, Yang is completely out of it at this stage. And mentally, emotionally, especially considering Blake ran from her afterwards, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's already pretty much wrecked as is. And so Adam will want to target the next thing for it, either going after Blake herself or me. If Weiss comes back into it at all, going after her?
It's hard to say, really, at this point, I guess. It may be more obvious to some others, but to me, it could go either way. But other than that, really, the intro was pretty solid for what it was. I didn't really pay attention to much of the lyrics, sadly. I was meaning to do that because the lyrics always show more than what we would expect.
Yeah, I actually quite like the song this time, especially compared to Volume 3's one. I wasn't really a fan. It's mostly the actual music part, not the lyrics. But yeah, I wasn't really a fan of that one. This one started off as more discussion about, the whole being fairy tale, but not thinking it's a fairy tale, not actually, turns out that's not actually life. Well, duh. But it's that's how RWBY's always envisioned things that way. So she's kind of realizing that a bit more now. And yeah, there's a bit to it from that. But
I suppose last thing. Yeah, mostly.
Go on.
I was to say one last thing I just wanted to mention is that I mentioned before some people, but the animation change from Volume 2 to Volume 3 really did not sit well with me, because the animation in Volume 3 just looked a lot slower, and it didn't look like they definitely used a different engine for one, but it just threw me off with how slow everything felt, especially with the fighting scenes. But once they actually showed something like Crow and Winter, they still have the feel for the fighting, whatever. And when once I saw Volume 4 kick in, it kind of adapted to its actual own anime feel instead of just being this whole different situation, rather than just being a new engine to try out. They are definitely getting better with how they're stylizing everything, how everything comes together, how the background looks, how the characters look, how they move, how they talk, how they fight. The Volume 4 does show that they are doing their best to try to make it look better.
Well, keep in mind, Volume 4 is the first one that's being made in Maya. There's a new program they're using. They've been using Poser the whole time before. Now they're using a different program entirely, probably because it's easier to work with. And you can see the difference, as you're saying, visually. It's much more distinct. When you see the trailer for the RWBY character short, she is very different within that. Looked very different. Looked much more. The expressions and such were much more.
She looked more focused.
Yeah, and you could really. She was emoting better. That's the way. That you could really see that within the trailer.
Yeah.
It's a show of the new engine basically, and looks good. Volume 4.
Episode 1. So far, everything's looking pretty good so far. And I know I enjoyed this first episode. I'm pretty sure you did too, right?
Well, yeah, I would like to hope so. It was nice seeing entirely different stuff, seeing a new synergies show up. Apparently Nora's hammer got an upgrade. That's always nice to see. And
I actually noticed as well, John's the only one whose outfit changed that didn't change much other than its armor.
Yeah. Maybe that was just because he was still using his old stuff until, gear got constructed.
There's some things he just can't let go. Just like his bunny hoodie.
Oh, yes.
But with that said, Volume 4, Episode 1 so far has really set the mood for what this series is going, and we're really eager to see what the next episode and what this whole volume in general is going to be showing us here. So, in case you missed it, Episode 1 of Volume 4, RWBY, is out now, but you probably won't be able to see it until you wait till next Saturday, because right now, as per speaking, this episode is only for people with a free account of Rooster Teeth. But if you guys want to just make your account there to go watch it yourself, maybe you want to know what's going on there, you can do that yourself, and yada yada yada, good stuff. But with that said, I guess we'll just wait till next time. So until next time, everybody.
Take care.